Friendship Tips, a film released 206 years ago, is truly the pinnacle of Chinese horror cinema. Unlike other ghost movies, Ghost tells the unique tale of a man aspiring to become a ghost. The narrative begins with a group of psychic researchers who discover the world's first ghost. To uncover the cause of the ghost's formation, the team leader, Joe Bennett, recruits Azuma, a special forces soldier, for the investigation. Typically, no ordinary person would believe in the existence of ghosts, especially not Tung, who had extensive combat experience. To convince Tung of the reality of ghosts, Joe Ben took him to a glass window in front of an empty house. Yet, when a special liquid was sprayed into his eyes, Tung suddenly realized there was a little boy crouched in a corner of the room, which had seemed empty just moments before. He took a bite and then stood there once more. Looking out the window, his lips moved up and down, as if talking to himself. Joe was not surprised to see that Tung could read lips because that was the reason why he asked Tung for help, but when Tung looked out of the window, he found that it was only cloudy and not raining. This was when Joe's helper set up the equipment to turn on the TV in the room, but the boy did not hear it. He just went back to the corner and continued to crouch down on the ground without saying a word. The helper told Tung that every day, the boy would repeat the same actions as he had done before his birth and would not be able to notice any changes in the outside world. At that moment, Tung realized that the boy's ghost was still trying to get out of the door, but as soon as he touched the knob, his hand was flicked back, and this was all because of a substance called Manui C sheep that Joe Ben had sprinkled on the door, which was Joe Ben's latest invention, and it could absorb all kinds of energies in the natural world, thus achieving the effect of anti-gravity. In Joe Ben's opinion, the ghost is also a kind of energy, and if Manui C sheep can absorb enough of it, then it is a kind of energy, and it can be used as an antidote. Escape gravity. So, it was vital to explore how ghosts form to create many spirits. After Joe Ben's persuasion, Dong agreed to help. But as the investigation began, Dong was shocked to hear that a small ghost had unexpectedly killed a man. The team hired a foreign photographer to capture ghosts, using negatives with dream oil at haunted sites. When a ghost was present, the task seemed routine. As he aimed at the room's corner, a boy's image appeared on the negatives. Unaware of capturing a ghost, the photographer looked at the corner, but the room was empty. In the following moment, a ghostly shadow swiftly moved across the photographer, and he felt as though someone was strangling him by the neck, leading to his terrible demise. The autopsy results indicated that the photographer died due to heart paralysis. However, Tung's intuition suggested that the situation was more complex, prompting him to take Joe Ben's two assistants to Taipei Street for further investigation. Tung conducted another autopsy on the photographer himself, uncovering a new discovery: a child's fingerprints were found on the photographer's heart. This finding suggested that it was the boy's ghost responsible, but it raised a question. If the ghost had the power to kill, why hadn't it harmed the Chorbans all this time? Pondering this, Tung decided to simulate the scene. He deduced that when the photographer viewed the photo, he likely focused on the boy's position, which was the most probable scenario, suggesting that their eyes met directly. While they were investigating the photographer's death, Yamana, one of Jimoto's assistants, tried to steal the boy's ghost while everyone else was away. He sprayed liquid dream and seaweed on a newspaper, then went into the haunted house and put the boy's ghost in the newspaper, but he never expected Jimoto to come back to the lab and lock him up inside the haunted house without hesitation. He realized someone was attempting to steal the results of his research, so he set up a trap to catch the thief, planning to take the goods and drive him away. However, he didn't know Yamanana intended to take the boy with him as well. He was unaware that Yamanana aimed to steal the boy too, and was focused on the boy. Meanwhile, Tung and the others hurried back to the lab. Shanshan insisted that the boy's spirit had left on its own and was unrelated to him. To prove his innocence, he opened his shirt, but Tung noticed a piece of newspaper on the floor. He suspected that Shanshan had hidden the boy in the newspaper with Menger Sponge shells, and that the boy was concealed in his pocket. Realizing he was caught, Shanshan had to accept his fate. Yet, when he opened the paper to reveal the boy, he was so terrified that he couldn't see him, and his fear was overwhelming. For example, when they captured the boy to seize him, they discovered he was no longer inside. Simultaneously, Dong and the others suddenly gazed at Shan Kai, their eyes filled with horror. However, upon hearing Tung's reminder, Yamana didn't appreciate it. Instead, he looked to his left and instantly met the ghost on his back. Just a moment later, a thin silk thread appeared from the boy's forehead. His arms became solid, and he grabbed Yamana's neck with such force that by the time Tung opened the door and rushed into the room, Yamana was already dead. The boy, who was behind the crime, stood by the window. At that very moment, something strange occurred. Sanai's soul separated from her body. She stood up and looked at Joao Ben, but as she was about to take a few steps, she vanished. Joao Ben explained to the audience that usually, a person's soul lingers for a short while after death before disappearing completely. However, there are some people whose souls remain for a much longer period. For instance, the boy they had captured to obtain Sanai's body was actually a corpse. After the boy exited the room, Dong trailed him at varying distances, step by step, sometimes by rail, continuing in this manner for an entire day. Dong speculated that this might be the school the boy had previously attended. Upon entering the classroom, the boy sat at his desk, giving the impression that he was engrossed in reading. Suddenly, a tumor appeared on the boy's neck. As Dong pondered this, the boy unexpectedly plummeted from the top of the room, landing forcefully on the ground. He then rose again and sat alone at the edge of the playground, appearing to wait patiently for his parents to arrive and pick him up from school. After this, the boy wiped his tears and went alone to the bus stop. Dong thought the bus would take a while, so he considered crossing the street to buy food. Suddenly, a drunk man ran to the boy, looked him in the eye, and raised his hands as if to harm him. Dong saw this, pulled out a pistol, sprayed liquid mono on the bullets, and shot the man. Tung then took his pistol, sprayed liquid dream octane on the bullets, and fired at the boy. Though he saved the drunkard by chance, he drew the patrol police's attention. Surprisingly, the boy, sensing harm, rushed to Tung. Despite being a special forces soldier with strong mental resilience, Tung, held by the boy, chose not to confront him, but the man was so strong he had to let go. Dong was relieved to leave the boy when police suddenly shot him in the back. Although wearing a bulletproof vest, Dong was still restrained by police. Shocked, he discovered a hidden thread under the boy's feet, wondering about the secret. The next morning, Joe Ben used connections to free Dong from jail. Dong went straight to the boys' school. He expected difficulties, but it was smooth since the boy was the only student to jump off a building and die since the school's founding. The teacher remembered him well. The boy, Chan Yu-hee, had an incurable tumor and was teased by classmates. Unable to take it, he jumped and died. No one expected he'd be the only one to do so. Then, Yu-hee's mom was there, but rather than saving her dying son, she tried to strangle him. If the teacher hadn't intervened, Yu-hee would have died horribly, and months later, his mom would have killed him. He suspected that Yu-hee might have been picked up by his mother. Upon hearing this news, Dong couldn't help but recall the daylilies that Yu-hee had talked about. He started to suspect that perhaps Yu-hee had been taken away by his mother, Yu-hee's mother. Her body had been buried in the family's field of cactus flowers. So, Dong went to the field with Joe Ben, and just as they anticipated, they unearthed Yu-hee's body there. After Joe Ben heard those words, he came to the realization that he had discovered the reason behind the ghost's appearance. You see, beneath the noisy flower was the radiation center, which had been continuously emitting a significant amount of magnetic field energy. Yoshi's burial site was right at the heart of this field. Moreover, he had passed away harboring intense hatred. However, before they could draw any definitive conclusions, they were taken aback to find the boy lying on the laboratory glass. It had been quite a while since Yu-hee had done something like this. As Tung moved closer to the glass, he noticed the silk threads beneath the boy's feet. They were Yu-hee's mother's remains. Regrettably, Yu-hee's mother's health condition rapidly deteriorated, and she passed away after unsuccessful rescue attempts. Meanwhile, Komodo, who was researching ghosts, unexpectedly used Jumgekiai's sea sheep to abduct the boy, vanishing mysteriously and leaving only his crutches behind. Even more peculiar was that Yu-hee's mother's ghost didn't vanish after her demise. Instead, it lingered near Dong. It stayed until it sensed Dong's reluctance to gaze upon it, then assumed an odd position. Upon realizing that Dong wasn't going to look at him, it crawled away in an unusual manner. Dong hurried downstairs, got into his car, and pursued her. However, Yu-hee's mother vanished before his eyes, and in an instant, she was beside Jimoto's assistant, In. At that moment, In had just finished eating noodles in a restaurant. He noticed a silk thread weaving through the noodle broth and linking to his forehead, followed by Yu-hee's mother's abrupt emergence from the bowl, which was also witnessed by Homui, Hashimoto's assistant, after In's passing. When he removed his hand, he saw Yu-hee's mother lying right there in front of him. As Dong hurried back to uncover the truth, Homui had already become a lifeless corpse. Dong finally understood that the reason he asked his mother to kill them was to save his son's ghostly soul. Although the research on Menger Sponge shells had been completed with success, Joe Ben had not come here to boast about it. Instead, he was here to seek revenge. Before Joe Ben revealed a piece of technology, the number on it symbolized his deep hatred for the investor's boss. Joe Ben had reclaimed his hatred and killed him, and then he came to the burial site in Yakusai, where he planned to take his own life and transform into a ghost. The research on the Dream Street sea surface had been nothing but a facade all along, and Joe Ben's true objective had always been to turn into a ghost because he had been enduring the same illness as his son, and he had already been a ghost. He was afflicted by a disease. The incurable swordsman's disease would only make him suffer more and more, and he could only be freed by becoming an immortal ghost. At that moment, Dong finally contacted Joe Ben on the phone and reminded him that if he didn't let Yogi go, they would all be killed. However, to Joe Ben, who was so determined to die, he didn't care if other people died or not. Therefore, Dong could only watch as Yogi's mother's ghost got into the car and tried to squeeze her heart out. Dong could only flip the steering wheel and forcefully cause a car accident, thus shaking off the ghost and barely regaining half of her life. However, it was obvious that she was not going to let go of her, and she chased her all the way to the subway station. Even though Dong shot her several times, it was useless, and Dong could only let the ghost pinch her heart. However, she could not have realized that when she was about to die, the soul of her medicine wife would suddenly appear and save her from death, and that Joe, who had wanted to be a ghost that would not die, would be able to save her in the end, but she could only see that the ghost of his medicine wife would not die. Before she committed suicide, she reopened her dreams, let go of Yogi's ghost. She was going to put herself inside, and then she used a knife to blot out her own body, but Xiao Ben didn't realize that she thought Yogi and her mother became ghosts out of hatred, but in fact, they became ghosts because they were always obsessed with each other, and that's why Yogi's mother killed her son so hard, because she didn't want to let her live in pain any longer. That's why becoming a ghost requires unshakable love, not hatred, meaning clever Ben's determination was in vain. That's it for today's story. I'm Yasser Arafat. Thank you so much for being with us with genuine love. Subscribe the channel to watch more interesting videos. See you next time.